Every July, we're given a gift. WWE gives us a gift, and that gift is a 2-hour SmackDown. And now, not only is SmackDown only 2 hours, the main event scene is loaded. SmackDown roster is by and far largely a much better roster than Monday Night Raw. You've got Cody Rhodes, you've got Randy Orton, you've got Kevin Owens, you got CM Punk. At some point, you're going to have Drew McIntyre. Though the injury bug has hit, the Rhea Ripley's out, and there's some notable injuries. Randy just came back. But by and large, this SmackDown roster is loaded. I didn't even mention Finn Balor. I didn't even mention Gunther. The roster. Now, I oftentimes talk about how overall the WWE roster is loaded right now. And it makes no sense to not have great stories and great matchups and fresh stories and fresh matchups. Following SummerSlam, WWE, it's been talked about by much of the IWC that WWE has hit the reset button and things are starting to cook. I entered that conversation very cautiously. Again, the conversation amongst the IWC. And if you don't know what the IWC is, the Internet Wrestling Community. So I'm going to educate you a little bit if you don't know. But the conversation coming out of SummerSlam was that WWE hit the reset button, and that Raw after SummerSlam, people said it was the best Raw of the year. And I immediately called recency bias and bullshit on that. I was in the building for the best Raw of the year. It was in Houston, Texas, when CM Punk cut Pipe Bomb number 2. That was the best Raw of the year. Was the Raw after SummerSlam bad? Absolutely not. It was very palatable. It did have some fresh elements, but even in those fresh elements, I had questions. Because one of the most important things that drives your programming are the stories that you are telling. And when you start diluting those stories or pushing, and almost in this version of WWE here in 2026, I would say over the past few years, there have been more concepts than stories. Triple H and this administration was not going to fool me by presenting a bunch of concepts at me, because I know that sometimes those concepts do not come to fruition. I've talked ad nauseum about the stop and start storytelling of so many stories that we had. Notably, The Rock and Cody Rhodes selling his soul, probably the biggest example of that. Well, coming out of SummerSlam, we did have some new stories that WWE was telling, or some new concepts that WWE was presenting, because you never know. Well, I watched SmackDown last night from Toronto, Canada. SmackDown that was completely sold out, a crowd of over 15,000 people. First sellout that WWE can honestly call in a minute. And why was it sold out? Because it was going to be headlined by a huge championship match between CM Punk and Canada's own Kevin Owens, who just recently returned. Only his second match in 17 months. And that match is a championship match. And that match, very good actually. But the rest of SmackDown, not so good. Now this week we've had a lot of newsworthy things that have transpired. And I can tell you right now, most of that news is not coming from last night's SmackDown. Most of that news is coming from contracts that aren't being renewed and a very loaded Monday Night Raw. That's what's going to carry the story. So we'll get into that and much, much more on this episode of Wrestling Brotha Talks Smack. Welcome back to Wrestling Brotha Talks Smack. I am your host, Jarvis Sam. If this is your first time joining, you got to hit that subscribe button. You got to hit the like button to push this video up the algorithm so more wrestling fans like you get good content like this. Also, hit the notification icon so that you can get updated each and every time I drop new content on this channel. Also, follow me on socials. That is Wrestling Brotha virtually everywhere, with the exception of Instagram because of unforeseen circumstances. My original Wrestling Brotha account got taken down. So it's I Am Wrestling Brother on Instagram. Having said that, I am entering, well, I just finished, it's been 2 years of me in the wrestling content creator space. I started this in August of 2024. And you know how sometimes your phone will notify you of milestones or of historic things. And this is one of the things that reminded me of the other day. And it gave me a reminder of my very first wrestling videos on TikTok. At first, I was just on TikTok, just seeing where it went. I have hosted podcasts in the past. I've been co-host to podcasts before, guest host, whatever. Done that. Back in the pandemic, I did a podcast. It was a Jarvis Sam show where just literally talking about whatever the hot topic of the time was. It was literally during the pandemic. We're locked in. Perfect opportunity to jump out into a creator space, but it wasn't focused. There was no niche. It was just whatever was happening in the world, we talked about it. Did pretty well, not, I didn't set the world on fire. I didn't take over, the Spotify top 10 list or anything like that, but it really gave me the experience and everything that I think led into me becoming a wrestling content creator. And in 2024, as I saw that video in my memories, I reflected. I mean, my set was way different. The space was way different. The lighting was different. My delivery was different. Everything about what I had going on at that time, it just I'm if I set the video side by side, you'd be like, wow. I mean, I was in 2024 when I started this, I was not in the greatest of headspaces. I had been laid off from the job that I thought was my dream job. And, the bounce back didn't happen quite as quickly as I would have expected. It was really at the beginning of the tough economy that we are now experiencing. And I had let go of my weight. I was, out of shape, and I could see it in the video. I was out of shape. I wasn't in the greatest of headspaces, right? But wrestling was kind of that escape from reality. And that's one of the things I've always loved about professional wrestling, is that it gives you that escape from reality, if only for 2 hours. And sometimes they terrorize us for 3 hour SmackDowns. And I may get on here and criticize angles and criticize storylines and offer my opinion and my unfiltered opinion on things. At my core, I love professional wrestling. I wouldn't do this if I did not. Having said that, I have seen professional wrestling have peaks, and I've seen it have valleys. And I know what those peaks and valleys look like, and it's why I can come on here and analyze the product the way I do, because I've been watching it since 1991, 1992. When I started the content creator journey, I'll be honest, I didn't know if give a damn about what I had to say about professional wrestling. This is a space that, in all honesty, as small as the community can sometimes seem once you're in it, when you're outside of it, you feel like, everybody's doing wrestling content, everybody's doing this, and anybody can have an opinion. Why would anyone listen to me? And first couple videos did pretty well. And, but when I look at, where I came from and kind of where I am now and where I hope to take this thing, it's inspiring. And I hope that this inspires somebody to do something that you have a passion about and don't really care about what anybody thinks about what you do. Again, I initially thought, like, man, is anybody going to care what I have to say about professional wrestling? And when I look at like some of my recent posts, and I've had some really phenomenal weeks, and across all platforms and social media, several 100K view weeks. And it's just like, man, really 100,000 people have come to listen to what I have to say, or see my reaction to certain things, or my analysis to certain things, and listen to my perspective. Absolutely crazy. But I also don't want to not value those spaces when if you're consistently getting a few hundred views, that is huge. Imagine being in front of 500 people talking about what you're passionate about. 500 people entering a room to listen to you talk about something you're passionate about. That's nothing to gloss over. Of course, as creators, we we want to see the tens of thousands, right? If you are consistent and getting that consistency somehow, some way, even if it's a few hundred, it's something to build on, and you should not stop. Keep getting better. My goal when I started, even though I was in a tough place, I know me, when I do something, I like to commit to it at least for a couple of years just to see where it goes. Now, if I'm not getting the fruits, if I'm not seeing the fruits, you either go back to the drawing board, you try to reinvent yourself, you do something different. But my goal from the beginning was always get a little bit better each and every time I stepped in front of the camera, whether it was getting better on my delivery, whether it was getting better on editing, whether it was getting better on the content itself, whether it was, figuring out, what's working, what's not working. So just getting 1% better each and every time I get in front of the camera. But my first video was shot on an iPhone 14 and probably a Amazon ring light. That was the extent of what I have. I have a microphone now. I've got, better lighting. I've got a different set. I've got a freaking Ulafala behind me now. Like, things have changed a little bit. I have a show, and but that's the thing. Just that commitment to getting 1% better each and every day, and the fruits you will see the results. So sorry to go on that rant. I know you guys are here to listen to me talk about this week in wrestling, but I had to touch on that because where I want to go, I've got to get 1% better every day. I can't stay in the same level. I can't keep doing the same thing over and over. I've got to understand what's working and build off of that, and then continue to see how I can build off of that each and every time. And I think about like where I started from with that one little TikTok video, and now, I've been able to work with Apollo Houston. I've had other organizations reach out to me about doing wrestling events. I've been invited to multiple podcast platforms. Got to partner with Triple Threat early on in my time, and you might be even seeing this on the Triple Threat platform. So there's been so much on this journey, and I'm just thankful for everything that has happened along the way. But again, where I plan on taking this, I got to keep getting better. I don't, as much as love seeing, great weeks of viewership and subscribers and follows and all those things. It doesn't go to my head at all. I keep getting 1% better each and every time, and what works, I add it to the tool belt. What doesn't work, I get it out of the way, and I keep pushing forward. And don't let people derail you from it. Don't let negative people, you're going to have negative people in your comments. You're going to have people that say, I've had people tell me I don't like wrestling. I'm like, that is absurd. So you got to block out those voices and just keep pushing forward. But let's get into this week. Okay. So the overarching topic that has been going over in WWE spaces in the internet wrestling community is Ilja Dragunov. He is no longer a part of World Wrestling Entertainment. The reports say that WWE and him could not come to a resolution because he wanted more money than they were willing to pay him for his level. So he wanted main eventer money, and WWE didn't see him as a main eventer. That's essentially what happened. In layman's terms, that's what it was. He valued himself here, and they're like, yeah, you're a IC champion, US champion at best. And that's what we got. And the IWC, is, oh, he could have been a world champion, and WWF didn't. Look, man, that may be true. I personally did not see main eventer in him, and I'll explain my take on that. I never saw that. Now, I know what I do know of him. He had history with Gunther or Walter in NXT UK. They had banger matches. And Ilja Dragunov brought that banger brand of wrestling to SmackDown when he returned from injury. So if you remember, he debuted on the main roster. Few months in, he got injured, was on the shelf for over a year. He returned. Upon his return, WWE did something with him. They did. It was in the midst of the Sami Zayn Open United States title open challenge with the Sami Zayn run where he was doing it, and Sami Zayn did amazing with that. Sami Zayn does amazing with everything he does. Ilja Dragunov was the one to dethrone Sami Zayn. There was one problem. His first night back, he accepts the United States Open Challenge with Sami Zayn, defeats Sami Zayn, but they forgot to build his character up. They forgot to tell us who the hell this guy was, what his mission was, why he was here. He just wins a championship. And it's great. Your first night back, you come in, you have a banger match, you win the championship. But what do? The following week, just has another banger match, and another banger match. And then you put him in a match series with Carmelo Hayes where they kind of bounce the title back and forth. And now they're not doing anything with either one of them. We needed character development. We need storylines. There are very few people in wrestling that are able to get over specifically on in-ring ability. To a certain extent, I believe Ilja did that. To a certain extent, I believe Carmelo Hayes did that. There is a limit to how far you can go if there is not a storyline and some character development, because that is what locks you in. And people will argue you down. You got to have great matches, and your wrestling is about great matches, and having great matches is absolutely a part of professional wrestling and definitely what you want to see the payoff to the storylines to be. But professional wrestling starts with storyline. Who is this person? What is their character all about? What are they trying to accomplish? What is their backstory? Why are they here? Why are they chasing this opponent? Why do they like this guy? What happened? Why is she the valet? Oh, cool. Now that makes sense. Now you build a feud, and you intertwine these characters, and you build feuds, and you have promos, and then you say, hey, next week at Saturday night's main event, these two are going to collide. And you're like, whoa, that's going to be good. I'm going to tune in to Saturday night's main event. I better fire up the Peacock subscription. But we didn't get any of it. And for the people that don't think that storytelling and promos, think that's secondary, I call bullshit. Going back to the point, there are very few people that can get over to the moon with just in-ring. And you have to be in this top 1% of different athletes to make that happen. And only two people honestly come to my mind when that happens. When I have this thought. And that's Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy. Those two were so good, so unique in the ring that they could. The spectacle was seeing them in the ring. You did not need to hear a 20-minute Rob Van Dam promo. I don't think Rob Van Dam could cut a 20-minute promo, but he can do Rob Van Dam and then get in that ring, and him and his opponent look amazing in that ring because of how good Rob Van Dam is. Same thing for Jeff Hardy. Can't cut a promo to save his life. Those moves he does in the ring. And those two had a hell of a match in the summer of 2002. I believe it was at SummerSlam. They had a banger match. Go watch that and make your own decision. Now, to some people, Bret Hart also falls in that category. I also call bullshit, because Bret Hart was always an above average promo. And when he turned heel in 1997, he became an exceptional promo. Not only that, Bret Hart was always in great stories. He had great stories with Owen, Bulldog, Austin, Shawn Michaels, always in great stories. Him and Austin are responsible for the Attitude Era. That double turn at WrestleMania 13, that started the Attitude Era, because now you've got this guy who's this, clean cut, wrestler that wrestles the right way, technical, and the crowd would rather cheer for the badass. So don't tell me that storytelling does not matter, because those things matter. I can remember a time in high school, there were some storylines that were, when you look back at it and I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, it was fucking trash, but you remember it. You remember the story over the match, unless the match was absolutely undeniably exceptional. And there are very few matches that are undeniably exceptional. Good matches come a dime a dozen. We had great matches on this past Monday night on Raw. We had one of the greatest matches of the year between Chad Gable and Rey Mysterio. But what did everybody leave Monday Night Raw talking about? The Bloodline angle. So don't tell me that stories and characters don't matter. Because no matter how good that match was, what everybody is talking about is Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline. That is the A story coming out of Raw. But I remember being in high school, you had, it was the time where like Ken Shamrock feuding with like Owen Hart, and they had like the good matches where they were, in the Lions Den and all that. But you know what we talked about in school? You see SmackDown last night? You don't like the way Pepper tastes? That's what we were talking about. The fucking Big Show, Boss Man, Al Snow, and eating Al Snow's dog. That's what we were talking about. You can call this segment trash, you can call it whatever it was, but it was what people talked about. Ilja Dragunov had great matches during his United States Championship title run. People can say, oh, it was the best thing on the show. Well, it was the best thing on the show because there were no fucking stories being told. So yeah, you're like, cool, let's watch a good match. Who the hell is Ilja Dragunov? What is he here for? What does he do? The average person does not know what happened 5 years ago in NXT UK with Gunther. Gunther wasn't even Gunther then, he was Walter. You gotta build these guys up. So don't, all this work great and all that great. What story, what carrot? That's why he's no longer with the company. The company did a disservice by not giving him carrot. Monday Night Raw, perfect segue into Monday Night Raw. Now, Monday Night Raw was not a bad show by any stretch of the imagination. But to me, this is just my take, it felt like a AAA super show. It felt like a AAA super, and that is not a knock to AAA whatsoever. Love the Latin community, absolutely. Love AAA, love what they're doing with everything in AAA. But that's what this show felt like, and I'm gonna tell you why. First, we had 2 World Heavyweight Championship tournament matches. We had the match between El Physical and Rey Fenix, and we had Dragon Lee versus El Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr. So that's 2 things that's very AAA based. We opened up with Stephanie Vaquer. Again, she's WWE. I know she spent a very short stint of time in AEW, but she's Latin. She's Latina, and you can very easily see the crossover appeal there. The very next segment was a match between JD McDonough and Javon Evans, which was very much rooted in Dominic Mysterio, who is the AAA champion, so that's more. And then we had the match of one of the matches of the year. It's not better than Grande Americano versus Grande Americano. I get that. This was a hell of a match between Rey Mysterio and Chad Gable. You've got the AAA general manager and arguably the greatest luchador of all time in this match with Chad Gable, who was the original El Grande Americano. It's AAA heavy, guys. It felt like a AAA super show. And again, it wasn't bad. It's not a bad thing. We got good wrestling on the show. And that's what I want to talk. Back in 2023, to open up 2023, the Royal Rumble was in San Antonio, Texas. My wife and I, we made the 2.5-hour trip up there, and we witnessed that show. And it was history. This was the greatest ending to a Royal Rumble. You had the Bloodline, and they've got Kevin Owens, and he's tied up in the ropes. The Bloodline wants to get this thorn up out of their business. And that thorn being Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is known to be Sami Zayn's best friend, but Sami Zayn is a member of the Bloodline at this point. And so one thing about the Bloodline is, first of all, family is first. But now if we welcome you into our family, you have to remember that we come first. All that other crap you got going on, I know you were in this man's wedding and all that, but if you want to be a part of this, you know what you got to do. So they made Sami Zayn make a choice. Is it the Bloodline, or are you going to do the right thing and not attack your best friend? That was the angle. I've been a part of many hot crowds. I've been in Chicago crowds that are hot, been in the Houston Astrodome for WrestleMania 17. This was a different level for this segment. This segment was incredible. And of course, this segment ends with Sami Zayn putting that chair to Roman instead of Kevin Owens. Well, we fast forward to 2026 and last week's Monday Night Raw. We did absolute cut and paste, mixed up the characters a little bit. Solo's on the other side of this now, and Solo's the one that has to make the decision. So going in, first of all, everybody was up in arms. Oh, Solo lost last week, and they're already going to kill him, and they're going to put him back in the bloodline. I was the first one saying, let it play out. He needed to lose because it's going to make for a better story. And that it did. So the gimmick was, he lost last week, Jey Uso was going to bring him to the tribal chief. So show opens up, and you had Jimmy and Jey just being over the top and just so excited about what they're about to do, and they felt like they got one, and their level of excitement almost spoiled the evening. It's like you knew with that level of excitement, this was not going to go smoothly at night and at the end. Also, being the fact that they saved this for the very end, they love saving the bloodline for the very end when they think they got something that's. So all night they're, excited. They're like, yeah, we're going to, the band's back together, get to that final segment. And the crowd is hot. I appreciate a hot crowd. A hot crowd can make these angles and these matches seem way better than what they are. That crowd was so locked in. I was bought in. I was bought in. Even though it was rinse and repeat, I was bought in. Well, this time they bring Solo to the tribal chief. So Roman comes out first with Jacob Fatu. He does the usual acknowledge me bit. And one thing I want to say about that, people sometimes think that this is Roman playing to the crowd, and he's been doing acknowledge me for many years. And acknowledge me is more about himself than it is the fan. It appears to be a positive reaction now, but it's all about the crowd worshiping Roman Reigns because he's not only the tribal chief of his family, but he's the tribal chief of the WWE universe. And so they're acknowledging the greatness that he is. That is what that is about. In no way does that make him a babyface. So not too long after that, here come the Usos, and they deliver on their promise as they bring Solo Sikoa right to Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns right away, the crowd starts chanting for Solo. And Roman says, don't listen to them. Sign number one, this man is not a babyface. This motherfucker is not a babyface. And he's letting you know this segment was this segment literally was to establish that Solo Sikoa is the babyface and to put him over as such, and to further highlight Roman Reigns hasn't changed, the bloodline hasn't changed. This is the same thing we got 2-3 years ago. Nothing has changed. They've only fueled this monster more. That's all it was. And this was putting an exclamation point because there was so much discourse about, who do we cheer for? Is it Roman Reigns? Do we cheer for Solo? I can't tell. That was the discourse amongst the internet wrestling community pretty much up to Monday night, because people were saying that the Solo Jey Uso match was quiet because no one knew who to fucking cheer for. Okay, well, WWE is listening. You don't know who to cheer for? Let us fucking tell you who to cheer for. And they drew the line in the sand, and they said, okay, Roman and the bloodline are on this side. They are heels. They are assholes. They're dicks. Pause. And then you've got, he's getting over organically. WWE sees it. WWE is like, you know what? We were going to put the band back together, but we might be striking gold with this Solo guy on accident. So let's see what it's talking about. Let's put him over strong as a babyface. And that's what they did. Roman Reigns is talking shit to Solo and saying, the sight of you makes me sick. And who do you think you are? He admires his watch and, and is just like, you're the cool guy now, and takes his glasses off and takes Solo's glasses directly off his face and steps on him. They attack him. He's down. Roman says what he says. LA Knight comes out. He gets tangled up. And now he's in that exact same situation that Kevin Owens was in 2023 at the Royal Rumble. They've got him. And now Solo has to make a choice. Solo has to make that choice. And that choice is, does he take out the trash that the Bloodline is presenting to him, or does he continue on this solo dolo journey? And Solo played it so well. He has his thumb ready, and he gets as close to LA Knight as possible, acting like he's about to do it, and then he puts Roman down. Roman sells this to the moon, which makes one of the reasons Roman's a great worker. He sells it to the moon. He sold it so good. What I loved about this segment, though, and as opposed to what we got at the Royal Rumble a couple years ago, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens were left laid out. Solo walked out standing tall next to LA Knight, again firmly establishing that he is a baby face and that he is going to lead this anti-Bloodline cohort establishment storyline. It's going to have new legs, and he is at the forefront. And I am looking forward to seeing Solo Sikoa step out on Monday Night Raw next week to see what he's going to do. Couple things I do want to talk about from Smack. The first one is the main event between CM Punk and Kevin Owens. This match had a big fight feel. I appreciate that they did their best to have commercial segments in one screen and they kept the match going. This was a super hot match. There was, of course, your near falls. Sami Zayn gets involved in the end, essentially costing Kevin Owens the match. After at first he was helping him and then things unravel. Ends up costing him the match. But then at the end of it, Sami Zayn attacks both CM Punk and Kevin Owens. So we know at some point we are going to get some combination of these three guys. And I would not be surprised if at Sunday night's main event, we're going to get Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn running it back before we get a three-way between them at maybe Money in the Bank. Great match, but the rest of the show sucked. The rest of the show absolutely sucked. We had Blake Monroe, who they have been running vignettes. She's kind of showed up. She kind of hasn't for several months. I don't know. I don't know when, but I feel like ever since like the week after Mania, this has kind of been brewing. I could be wrong. So finally, she gets advertised for a match, and it's going to be against Julia. Cool. It's against Julia. We know Julia has been on a trajectory of getting buried. So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? So you bring her out. Hey, if Julia is going to settle into her job as a jobber, fine. She can work a good match with this match. Does not even start. Julia comes out and Blake Monroe attacks her from behind, beats her down. So we don't get a Blake Monroe entrance, which is going to be part of getting her over. We don't get to see a proper in-ring match from her. We know she can cook. She used to be Mariah May in AEW doing the Hollywood finale or whatever it was with Tony Storm, and we know she can cook in the ring. And this is the exact, we need all these layers from Blake, because she is going to fall into obscurity because we already have a Tiffany Stratton that kind of has that same look. We've got to show what's different about her, and this did nothing to do that. We are at a point where most of these women's champions don't have any championship matches. So it's the perfect time to build new stars, to leverage these women that you have at your disposal. It's a perfect opportunity to shoot Blake Monroe straight to the top. We know she's got the look that WWE likes. And now we also know, if we know a little bit about our history, we know that Blake Monroe can cook in the ring. There is nothing wrong with featuring her prominently and shooting her to the moon, because you need top stars. And her being a heel makes it that much easier to be a top star. We know we're getting Randy Orton and Cody at Sunday night's main event. They open the show and just peeled heat away from it, because now they can't touch until Sunday night's main event. Why even do this? Why even do this? You know, back in the day, they did little things like, if you were in a feud with somebody, because Randy didn't even need to show up to do what was done on this. He didn't even need to show up. What they could have done, maybe Cody Rhodes is in just a regular routine match with somebody, and then commentary. Sometimes they used to have these segments where in the match, during the match where somebody's future opponent was going to be in, they would bring you in via satellite and do a quick interview. Like, hey, next Sunday you've got a big matchup with such and such, and kind of talking about them as the match is progressing. I'm not there because I don't want to jeopardize, my ability to get, a future title shot and this, that, and the third. You could be talking about that, telling the story that way, as opposed to just absolutely killing the heat and showing that Nick Aldis sometimes doesn't have this stuff under control. And I just, if they're in the building together, like it just, it's wild. Like, so now they've got to be in the building together and they can't do more than talk. Like, make better use of it. Tell a better story. Put them in situation. Put them in different situations where you don't even have to mention that, because it's like, why do you need to do that? Like, you're literally killing the heat when you could have just gave one of the guys the night off and done something different. Or it could have been, they used to have where your future opponent might be on commentary. That happens. So it's like, do something like that. And but what they did, it just I thought it took heat away from a very heated feud, and they could be doing so much more with these two. And it's just running in place, guys. Absolutely running in place with this feud. Well, if you have made it this far, make sure you are plugged in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification icon so you can get updated each and every time I drop content. I am Wrestling Brother, where I do not pop for the moments. I analyze the moments, and we'll catch you next time with more wrestling content.